A Hawaiian girl adopts an unusual pet who is actually a notorious extraterrestrial fugitive.
Welcome to the Walt Vault with
Michelle,
Andre,
Louise,
and me, Emily. We're a family-friendly podcast where we pick a new Disney movie each week. We watch it, share our thoughts, and then relate it to pop culture, fandoms, and anything else that pops into our heads. Enjoy!
Hello and welcome to the Walt Vault, episode 25.
boom! We are officially a quarter of a century.
Michelle's age?
Yes, my age.
Yes, we
Yeah.
are doing Michelle's episode.
We nailed it. Hi.
Was that supposed to be your Stitch voice?
Hi.
That was a little
Is
better.
that better? We're talking about Lilo and Stitch, the 2002 Disney 2D animated film. What you guys think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, first impression?
Yeah. Oh, actually, you know what? Wait, before first impressions, I want to apologize to anyone who tried to download episode 24 on iTunes because it was not working and iTunes was not cooperating with me, and it still might not be cooperating with me. But we apologize for all of your troubles and hope that you were able to listen to the episode on YouTube or Stitcher.
Oh,
Google
the only
Play
solution I have is, get a Google Pixel XL.
Oh, because you were able to listen to it?
Yeah, because I have an Android phone.
It was only iTunes that was the issue, the Apple Podcast app. If you listened on any other podcast app, it was there and available for
Yes.
you. So, sowies.
Zowies.
Anyway, yeah, first impressions. Hit it, Michelle.
My first impressions of this movie it's super great. Like, this is...
It's super great.
We've talked about the term classic before and like what determines if a Disney movie is a classic Disney movie. For some reason I think of Lilo and Stitch as a classic Disney movie. I don't know if it's because Stitch has so much popularity, but it's a classic Disney movie to me, and it's great, and it's up there with some of the best. And my younger sister really likes Stitch, so I grew up watching Lilo and Stitch a lot. And even the spin-off show.
What was it? I think it was just called Lilo and Stitch, the series, right?
Yeah, something like that,
Yeah.
which was really good, too. So, great movie. I super love it.
Yeah, they've done a bunch of extra Lilo and Stitch material. Like, I think there was Lilo and Stitch, and then Lilo and Stitch 2.
Stitch has a glitch, and then
Stitch has a
Leroy
glitch, and then Leroy
and Stitch.
And then there was
And then
this
there's two
show.
anime series in Japan based off of Lilo and Stitch, and a spin-off movie of Lilo and Stitch. Just Lilo and Stitch is everywhere.
Yeah.
Mainly Stitch, but,
Popular.
What are your first impressions, Emily?
We're laughing over here. If you can't tell, I'm giggling into
Why are
the
you
mic
laughing?
accidentally because I drew Stitch
I thought you were drawing a spaceship.
and that's my
Okay.
that's my Stitch drawing.
Oh, we
That's
might have to
super
post
cute.
some of your
Yeah.
your
I
notes
actually have
drawings.
quite a
Yeah,
bit
we
of-
need to put your drawings on the Instagram story.
My favorite one is still Woody.
He is the
Woody
best.
From the
Woody
Toy
is the best.
Story.
He's hilarious.
I'm a funny artist. It's funny. I want to go on a mini rant before I give my first impression because you brought up something I want to talk about.
Hit
Do
it.
you notice that Lilo is very obviously absent from Lilo and Stitch merchandise?
She is, yes.
Oh.
It's Stitch. Stitch
Stitch,
is
It's
everywhere.
all Stitch.
And you know who even gets more merchandise than her? Her doll, Scrump, who's in the movie for like 2 seconds.
You're
Who
right.
she says is defective.
I'm pretty
I
sure
believe.
Scrump is always at Hot Topic.
Right?
Wow.
But when do you
yeah.
ever, like, very, very, very seldom do you see Lilo
I
stuff?
never see any Lilo
And I'm
stuff.
talking more like park-wise and like official Disney merch because obviously like Etsy shops and other people can do
Yeah.
their own stuff, but like you
Or
never
if
see
you
Lilo
do-
stuff Disney side.
If you do
Come
see
on.
Lilo Stitch, it's just like the pattern of her dress. It's not like her face on anything necessarily.
Poor Lilo's like that little 6-year-old just got ousted from her own movie and her name because you just said Leroy and Stitch. Okay, I'm just gonna throw it out there.
That's a spin-off movie, Leroy and Stitch.
Yeah,
I'm
but
just
the point is that
saying.
Lilo got thrown out
She
of
got
that one.
ousted of her
Lilo
own.
neglected.
And even the second movie's basically about Stitch.
I remember everyone who leaves me.
So sad.
It's so.
And she must remember herself because she loved herself.
Okay.
I just went to Shop Disney and just typed in Lilo and Stitch, and it's all Stitch.
Oh my
stuff.
God! Yeah, it's all
There's
Stitch.
literally zero. Oh,
There's a Lilo doll.
There's one Lilo doll, and the rest is all Stitch stuff. Wow. This is
Stitch.
Lilo Erasure.
Since we're on this topic already, I'm just going to say that Stitch is extremely popular in Japan. Like, he is everywhere. He's everywhere in America, too.
Yeah, he's pretty popular
But
here.
it's on another level in Japan because I really want to go to Disneyland Tokyo and Tokyo Disney Sea. That's like my dream Disney park to go to, and they have like 3 Stitch shows. Not Lilo and Stitch, just Stitch.
Stitch and Stitch.
Stitch and Stitch.
That's hilarious. So,
What are your like first impressions of the movie?
I want to say this is the second time that I've seen this movie.
Really?
And yes, I want to say it may be third, but I'm going to go with second for sure. And I like it better the second time, but I will say I really like this movie. I liked it the first. It went from like the first time to like really like.
Is it because you're a parent?
I think I have a problem watching movies the first time. I think I'm really starting to like realize that about myself.
Did you watch it the first time as an adult or as a kid?
As an adult.
Oh, okay.
I never saw it as a kid.
Gotcha.
I never saw this movie. It's so funny because I realized, like, shout out to my mom, even though this is like an anti-shout out, because if she
What up, Carol?
if she didn't watch, or if she didn't like want to watch it, I didn't watch it. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like growing up, so
Yeah.
I didn't have brothers and sisters to go watch things with. So it was like if my parents took me or didn't take me, then I didn't see it. So I think that she saw Weird Alien and didn't want to see it, so she didn't see it. Same kind of thing with like Nightmare Before Christmas. She saw like Creepy Skeleton, didn't want to watch it. I didn't see it.
No
See, my
thanks.
family's the opposite. They saw Weird Alien, connected it with my little sister, who's kind of an oddball in her own way, and they were like, yeah, we're seeing this movie. And she loves Stitch. I think she has like 3 Stitch pillows, like, the pillow pets. I'm like, but why? They're the same. She's like, yeah. Okay, you have 3 of them. That's
See?
cool.
Girl,
You do it.
3 is better than 1.
Yeah.
So that was my motto in bowling.
Her
you
whole
know.
bedroom is Hawaiian themed, and it's like all Lilo and Stitch. It's pretty cute.
Is there Lilo in her Lilo and
It's
Stitch
all
bedroom?
Stitch. Yeah, let's be real.
So it's Stitch.
It's a Stitch bedroom.
So yes, I enjoyed it.
Louis, what's your first impressions?
No, it's not a bad impression. I'm just trying to think about it. I remember at first I thought, man, this Lilo or this Stitch is a
FYI, he keeps calling Stitch Lilo.
Oh
I'm
no,
gonna call him the Blue Dog.
dog!
That's
my
acceptable.
first impression was, man, this Blue Dog is a pest, but I like this movie. It's a good movie for sure.
He's a pest.
You did like it. You were laughing when we were watching.
Oh yeah,
it.
I was laughing
Yeah.
in a couple scenes, but I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm gonna pick out a certain theme that some people would agree on, and that I disagree on. But that's a conversation for later on in the podcast.
Oh my gosh, Lou, we're
Later
taking it there
on,
already.
podcast.
Just so as everyone knows, we watched this together as a podcast team, and we enjoyed watching it together because we had a lot of very good laughs in this movie.
It was a good one to watch together.
Yeah.
It was very good to watch together.
Watch
like-
it with friends.
Yeah, don't watch it by
This
yourself.
sounds bad because
you might cry.
I would want to watch a movie with you anyways, but we had to watch this movie together because we couldn't find it anywhere. I think it's in the vault right now.
Yeah, well, don't try to find it on iTunes because it's not there.
It's interesting. Like, we were trying to just rent it from Amazon or iTunes or whatever, and it's just it wasn't there.
I think it's
for
in the
us,
vault.
on our devices. But I think you can still rent it if you go to the website and then rent it and then switch over to your Xbox or whatever and then view it there. But it's a lot of
Luckily,
steps.
my sister has all those
See?
movies.
Yeah,
Kylie, who has the
Stitch
Stitch bedroom,
obsession.
she had the Lilo and Stitch.
blow the
DVD.
dust off your DVDs to watch Lilo and
She
Stitch.
still very much watches DVDs.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, DVDs. They're still.
We didn't ask you though. What's your first impression?
Oh, I thought you were saying we didn't ask him about his
about my
idea.
DVDs?
you don't have no DVDs.
I didn't ask you
Andre
about
is
none
in
of
a
your
digital
DVDs.
age.
That's true. All digital.
I get all my digital copies.
No physical media.
Digital.
I like Lilo and Stitch. I watched it as a child a fair amount, and then maybe 1 or 2 times as an adult, and it's good stuff. It's hilarious. I love Stitch.
Hilarious.
I also have
Hilarious.
hilarious.
There you go.
Yeah, I also have some Lilo erasure because Stitch is super cool. I like that he's a shapeshifter.
But I'm gonna go out and say this: like Lilo is super cool too. Granted,
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. Before we go into that conversation, I just want to ask you two, because Luis and I both watched this as an adult because we both watched it together.
Mhm.
I want to say the first time and then this time. How do you feel about this movie? Do you feel differently about this movie watching it from an adult perspective versus a child perspective, since you saw it both?
I don't think so. Like there was some stuff that I had more adult opinions about, like Lilo and Nani's relationship with each other, that they were sisters, but Nani was forced to play a motherly type role, and how Lilo was she was more of a brat to me this time when watching it. But I still agree with Lilo on most things.
Nah,
it's funny
6-year-old, you got
Yeah.
this.
It's funny because when we were watching it, I honestly I didn't think of it any differently watching it this time until you said, from a social worker's perspective, they're a hot mess.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, but it's not her fault. Like, I've never thought about it
Yeah.
necessarily, which is funny because I work with children, so I should totally think about that. But I've literally never thought about it until you mentioned it.
Well, I
And
wonder if
now
that's
I think of
because you saw it
differently.
as a
Thanks.
kid.
Thanks,
Sorry.
Emily.
But I wonder if it's because you saw it as a kid, and so you always are looking through that lens.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Kid's lens.
Like I said, and I will always bring up Hercules because it's my personal favorite. I think when we go and review that movie, I'm gonna be like, there are no flaws, not at all, not one.
Zero.
When there's
Sure.
there's flaws like every other movie, but this one I look at it from now, especially I look at it as a parent and looking at poor Lilo and what she's going through.
Yeah.
And Nani as a mother is that motherly figure, even though she's not a mother. She's pretty much a single mother
Right.
Yeah,
now.
she is.
A young single
A
mother.
very young single mother. I'm looking at her relationship with David and how he's trying to help her. I'm
Right.
looking at the social worker, and I mean, I worked for social services for a while, and looking at that, and so now I'm like, oh my god, this movie is. It's so good,
It's
but
very
it's
good.
so it's heart wrenching.
Yeah.
as
It
well.
is
It's not
heart-wrenching, for
it's
sure.
as hilarious as it is emotional.
Right.
Like
I think-
this hit me
yeah.
on a level that other movies have only tried to hit me
Yeah,
on.
I think definitely as a kid it was more like, haha, so funny.
Yeah.
Like, all the funny parts is what you pay attention to.
Nani can't cook.
But
Exactly.
haha, so funny. Like,
she almost
but
burned
now,
the house down.
yeah, you think,
house
of it,
blew
you
up.
think of it as comical.
Lost a job. It's cool.
But yeah, as an adult, it's like, oh no, poor things.
It's
Poor
a
things.
hot mess. Anywho,
things.
I know. I'm just bringing us into that. Woo.
Okay, so I want to get on. We're all saying Stitch is great. Stitch is cool. He's a shapeshifter. He's a cool alien. But let's give Lilo some love first, since Stitch gets all the love. Lilo is freaking cute. And I'm gonna talk about. I want to talk about how she's animated first.
Yeah.
Because according to some sources we have read, Lilo is 6 years old. But to me, she seems younger than that. Like the way that they hold her, they almost hold her like a baby. She's in kind of a fetal position a lot throughout the movie in different occasions. She's extremely small, and she's a kooky, odd kid because of things that have unfortunately happened in her young childhood years, which, shapes your personality. We all know this.
Right.
But
I thought she was older because
No.
of the way that she thinks.
Well, and that's the thing is I think that she's an interesting character because she has these, like, her whole personality is a juxtaposition. Pretty much, like, she literally has what is the word? It says practical voodoo. Like
Yeah.
normal 6-year-olds aren't like picking up like practical voodoo and like
Or even know
understanding
what it is, yeah.
exactly. So I mean, that's why I thought she
She's
was
an
older.
oddball, yeah.
But like you said, her size difference, she looks maybe like a smaller kid, and I wonder if that's because they were trying to emphasize her difference from her circumstances. Like
And
she
I
was
think-
really small.
I think also
Yeah.
to give her like an innocence to her
Yes.
as well for her whole situation. Like, she's being a brat and all these things are happening to her, and she's a straight up brat for a lot of the movie.
Right.
But like, there's reasons behind it, and so I think they almost animated her in that way that she was like lovable and likable, and then she says things, and you're like, what? Where did that come from, Lilo? Why are you hammering the door shut so your sister can't get in your house and saying just leave me here to die?
'Cause
Like,
she was depressed.
dramatic.
Well,
Had
you
to
know,
listen to Elvis.
it's funny that you say that because this is one of the first movies where the bratty character, quote unquote, didn't bug me, because I get annoyed very quickly, just like Luis.
I wonder if that's because her companion is an even brattier character.
Perhaps.
No, I think it's because I really sympathize with her.
But that's what I was going to say, is that her brattiness comes from a reactionary point versus like other kids who are like I'm just going to say it. I mean, I can say this.
Bicycle redhead girl?
Well, yeah, I was going to say like entitled white people.
Sure.
I mean, I grew up being kind of that entitled white person, not like trying to, but just, you know, I came from middle class. Like I never really wanted for anything. So I can understand where like it's annoying when those kids are bratty.
Right.
Like you have nothing to be bratty about. But like Lilo has gone through some traumatic biz in her life. And so hers is definitely because of what she came through, not because she's just
and she doesn't.
Lilo's brattiness is earned.
You know what?
It's earned her right to be a little.
It's so funny, and I was thinking about this a lot last night, and I don't want to make anybody mad or anything by saying this, but I'm just gonna say like, think about it.
Ooh, make them
and
mad.
it's only
make them mad.
For those of our listeners that don't know, I work with children with autism, and Lilo, a lot of the things that she does or that she is quirky about, just I notice a lot of those like autistic tendencies in her, and I almost wonder if that's why my younger sister like connected with the movie so much. Like the social relationships, she's not good at building social relationships at all.
Right.
You see her trying to like make friends with these girls when clearly their facial expressions are like, do not hang out with me, get out of here. And the
when they're riding by, she goes, "Oh, my friends!" And then they try to run away from her.
And this is gonna maybe break some hearts, but I can't tell you how many times like situations like that have happened to my sister. You know, where I'm like, "Sweetie, I don't think they want to be your friend," and I kind of noticed that in Lilo, or also just when. You know, the redhead girl, when they're dancing and everything, she says she's weird or something, or she says, like, you're crazy. And then Lilo just straight up attacks her. And it's like, yeah. And, like,
that
she's
was
just
probably
very
one of the best scenes in that whole
reactionary
movie.
and things like that. And I'm not saying that they maybe based anything off of this like that, but certain things she does, and I think maybe that's why I personally empathize with her even more. Like, I think she's so cute, and she's just, like, a misunderstood child that has a lot of issues, and it breaks my heart.
Well, and I think that's what gets me the most about this movie, too, is that the hardest for me, I look at Nani, too. She's looking at her younger sister, and she has really no way to like provide for her
or to discipline
or
her.
To she doesn't have time.
She doesn't have
she's literally
any resources at all.
Exactly. She's trying to have a job so that they can have food and shelter, literally. And so she doesn't have even like the knowledge of how to be a parent like that.
Right.
And you can tell, and Luis and I were talking about this in the car earlier, you can tell that they had a bratty relationship like when mom and dad were alive because of the way that like they sit on each other and just like
they were sisters.
Slams the door on her head.
Just all this stuff. And so for her to try to balance being mom and all of that, if any, like she was autistic or whatever, maybe she did have things going on, how would she even have the knowledge or resources to help her sister do whatever?
Yeah.
And she
let alone have friends.
It breaks my heart a lot because Nani is literally trying so hard. And I also think of this from a cultural perspective. They're natives to their region in Hawaii. They lost their parents. They probably have nothing. Like, they don't have... Like,
they're lucky they have the house.
They don't, you know, and that's, like, really, really sad to say.
And blue punch Bucky.
But she don't want to work at that crazy luau anyway.
Speaking of the luau.
Yes.
Ooh.
What?
Okay, so it's funny because... you need to be
What
careful.
I do?
No, not you. You meaning all of us need to be careful about like the things that you can get yourself into on Tumblr and other meme sessions, because you can get yourself into a rabbit hole of
you could go down a dark, crazy rabbit hole.
You get yourself in some situations, but it's interesting because Nani in the movie, when she's getting fired, she says something like, nobody wants to work at your fakey luau anyways, right? And it's so interesting because culturally, luau's originally were a sacred practice.
Right.
And again, Westerners, i.e. probably white people.
Definitely white people.
Hey, Andre, nobody asked you. Came in and started luau's for tourists, right? Trying to bring commerce to the area. And indigenous people weren't even like allowed to go to luau's.
Right.
they were allowed to
perform
and to work after the tourists had left,
What?
but they weren't really allowed to be a part of their own sacred practice
Right.
that the Westerners pretty much like westernized. Do you know what I mean?
Those are our pigs you're roasted.
Yeah, yeah. So pretty much, it's interesting that she says like you're fakey luau, because I remember on multiple occasions like interacting with people in the native areas, because I got my master's through Hawaii, were saying how Western culture has really ruined what indigenous people think is best about Hawaii. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's really interesting. She's like, nobody wants to be here, and it's like they probably don't want to, but they have to.
Yeah.
Like that's their force to work
because
there
they have to make money.
because they have no
And
other.
that's now how it is now.
Awful.
Fun fact.
I know I took it down there, but
I know.
it's just awful.
But we can take it on another level too. So, fun fact: the voice of Nani and her
David.
boyfriend David,
Mhm.
they wrote a lot of their dialogue because
I
they
read
wanted
that.
the slang and everything to be like native to Hawaii.
Right.
So I
They
thought
helped.
that was cool. They really did try to make it like culturally,
Yes.
politically correct per se.
Well, and like culturally correct. I think that this was one of, I'm not going to say one of the first, but this was a great look at where animators and story, the writers went, and they really wanted to start with the culture. And I mean, we've talked about Moana and how like they did a really good job there, and about some of the other
Oh
movies
yeah,
as
many
well.
years later, but this was the first.
Well, and this
Right.
was like this was a good starting place, at least for them to try to work those kinks out, because
Yes.
not a lot of other movies were native to their areas. Yes, we have princesses in Germany or princesses in England or wherever,
Right.
but that
Yeah.
doesn't mean they're culturally sound. I mean, I could pick up Rapunzel and put her in
Anywhere.
any
Texas,
place, right?
We'd
I
be
mean,
like, okay.
yeah, I mean, it doesn't really matter where
Yeah.
you put her, because is it really
right. It does.
making you feel like she's in Germany or
Yeah.
wherever she's supposed to be? I don't know.
It's funny that you
Oh,
mentioned
hello,
like,
German hair.
oh my god,
That would have made it a little bit more.
yeah.
Actually,
They
that
really-
would've made it worse.
They really researched a lot for this movie, and they wanted it to be, culturally correct. Well, this movie, Lilo and Stitch, was the second movie that was produced at the Disney Studios in Orlando. The first was Mulan. So it's so funny to me that, Mulan, they really tried to make, culturally and historically accurate as well. And
Right.
it's actually set in
China.
I was going to say Japan. I had Japan on the brain because Stitch is popular there. So it was set in China, and they did all that research there. Well, this one was set in Hawaii. So I almost wondered if they picked that studio because they did so well on that they were like, oh, you guys can do a great job on this movie too.
Possibly, yeah. Because I read that they were actually at first going to set this movie in Kansas or something like that.
Rural Kansas.
Kansas.
That would be ridiculous.
Yeah.
Is that
Would've
because
been
they were going to do
horrible.
crop circles and alien stuff,
wanted
weren't they?
They wanted it to have
Maybe.
be a rural place so that Stitch
So they could have
didn't
crop
didn't have a
circles.
city to destroy or anything
Crop
like that.
circles.
Sure, crop circles. But then then they changed it to Hawaii because they were like, oh well, we can do something a lot more visually interesting than Kansas. I
Thank
think.
goodness.
Yeah.
Well, and then they were going to be making Wizard of Oz stuff, and
Yeah.
we're going to be getting all. I mean, not the Wizard of Oz is bad, but we're going to be getting all kinds of
Yeah, I'm really happy they picked
Superman's from Kansas.
Hawaii. Whatever.
Sorry, Krypton.
What are you talking about, DC? Boo, DC, boo.
Hey,
Hey,
don't
some
hate on
DC's
Superman.
good.
Yeah.
Hey, there's some
Boo.
DC.
Okay.
Hey,
Hey,
It's fine. I like
we
the Green
just watched
Arrow.
the Lego Batman movie. Get out
Yeah,
of
we
my
did, and
face.
it was bomb.
Okay.
Speaking of Mulan, okay, let's
Speaking of
since I was talking about Mulan, there's multiple Mulan Easter eggs in this movie because it was the same studio,
Yes.
that produced Mulan. I think there
Yes.
was 3. The only one I saw that you had pointed out, Emily, was the poster of Mulan in Lilo's bedroom.
right.
Or was
In
it
Nani's bedroom.
Nani's bedroom.
There's also the Mulan Walk.
Yes, restaurant.
Chinese restaurant that they
Yes.
walk past right after they
yes.
buy Stitch. And then
I have lots of hidden Mickeys and things.
Ooh, you do it. Go for it.
Are you
I
guys
love this
ready?
stuff.
Okay, so there's the Mulan poster in Donnie's bedroom. It's actually artwork from the movie. It has
Yeah.
her up on the horse,
With her
rearing
armor
back
on.
with her
Yeah.
armor. They have the Mulan Walk Mulan Walk restaurant. As they're walking down the street, it pans back and you can see it. There is when Lilo and Stitch are getting ice cream and they have the little sunglasses on, you see them standing in front of a stand full of what do you call those? Like
Flowers?
No, cards. Like
Newspapers.
postcards.
Postcards.
And the postcard is of Orlando, Florida, and it has the Magic Kingdom on there.
Oh.
Which, and you just said that's where
That's
they
where
did
the studio was.
Studio was. So
That
that's
makes
really
sense.
cool. They also have references to A113. We've talked about that before multiple times. Pretty
It's
much
everywhere.
anytime there's a license plate in this movie, it's A113.
Right.
They make an reference to Area 51 early on when they're in the alien
yes.
sector.
Yeah.
And they say something like, oh, it's in Area 51.
Oh, yeah, because they're trying to track where Stitch is going to land, and he's landing in Area 51, which is
Yes.
so funny.
There is reference to the Lexo ball. You actually see the Lexo ball when Stitch turns into a ball and is rolling through the house. When
does
he's
he have like a star on his back when he's doing it?
No, there's actually a ball in the corner, which is funny because we'll talk about him
Had
turning into a
Lasseter
ball.
taken over by now? Is that why there's
It's
Pixar references in it?
2002.
I have no idea. Which I thought was interesting that there were Pixar stuff, but
Uh-huh.
there's
Interesting.
when Lilo's trying to teach Stitch how to dance, and they're in the fruit stands area. There's a hidden Mickey in the cantaloupes.
Oh.
Cute.
There is also a hidden Mickey at the beginning of the movie when Jumba
Jumba.
Jumba Juice
Jumba Juice.
Jumba Juice?
is on trial, and Stitch is standing next to him in those little pod things. There's a slime spot on the floor, and it's in the shape of a hidden Mickey. Mickey slime.
Gross.
Exactly. There
Gross.
is a Dumbo in Lilo's room on the canvas. No, what do you call that? Like a painter's, like
Yeah, it's a
canvas.
canvas,
An easel.
Thank you. On the easel, he's hanging out as like a stuffed animal, and you can see him when they're looking towards the easel, but also when they're looking out the window to see what happened when Stitch lands.
Crash.
And that's a really cool thing, and I think Michelle will talk to us about why that's cool in a second. That Dumbo's a reference. But then the last thing that I found and or looked up was that Stitch is actually referenced in another one of our Disney movies, Disney Pixar. He's in Big Hero 6. There's a Stitch reference actually twice. One is when you're looking at Hero. You're looking at him, and behind him there's a whole bunch of pictures on the wall. There's actually a picture of a cat in a Stitch costume.
Oh my gosh.
Kind of ridiculous. And I'll have to post that one because I thought that was
Follow Disney Pets on Instagram.
I thought that was way too funny. And there's another one with Stitch. There's like a Stitch sweatshirt, it looks like, folded up in what is his name? Fred's house. In Fred's house. When they go back to his house, and his dad is actually
Is it George or Fred?
George. So yeah, and there's a sweatshirt in his house. So I mean, like you said, Stitch is everywhere.
This is an Easter egg happy movie, man.
Which is weird because I feel like it's too early for all of that. But
Yeah.
maybe they were just like
Stitch
dipping
is
in.
silly. They were being silly. I don't know. They were going for
I
it.
think Lasseter did take over in like 2000 or something like that. So
That makes sense.
Yeah, there's little
It's fun though. So there's lots of interesting stuff to look out for.
Yes.
And we'll make sure to post a lot of those so that you can find them because they're literally so hilarious.
That is funny. So let's get into a conversation about the animation, which we kind of haven't talked about for some of these movies we've been doing lately because they've been kind of bleh on the animation side.
Bleh.
But it's interesting that this is one of the last 2D animated features. And
this came out in 2002. The last one was 2009.
Yeah, there was quite a few.
Okay, well, all right. But it was still during a time period where like 3D animation was happening, but Disney wasn't quite
They were converting.
on board with it yet. You
Transitioning.
know? So Emily had said this when we were watching that the beginning, the space scenes, like at the beginning of the movie and things like that, just seem like the animation is not as good in them compared to when they're actually in Hawaii, or like just the opening scene where the song comes on and it says Walt Disney and the fish are there. Then it's like, wow, this is beautiful. But that whole space intro scene before it was like, meh.
Well, okay, so this is what threw me off the first time I watched the movie. So not this time, first time. We're watching, and I'm like, what in the world are we watching? I thought we were watching a spin-off movie because they're in space.
Right.
The animation looked like a reprise movie. Like, if you've ever seen Aladdin 2, or if you've seen... We tried to sit down and watch Kronk's New Groove, you guys. Whoa.
God-awful.
We all were falling asleep.
We all sat down and were like, at the same time, like, I can't do it. Like, Kronk did not need his own movie, right?
We only got like 45 minutes into that
can't.
hour and
If
15
that.
minute
It
movie.
was... We couldn't do it. Anywho, if you've watched like straight to VHS movie
Or DVD.
Straight to video.
straight to other media movies. It's just the animation's not that great. So I thought that's what we were watching because everything was so flat and it didn't make sense to me. And then once the movie starts, like Michelle said, was when Walt Disney Pictures came up and the fish are like very vibrant and pretty. And it felt to me like they didn't know where they were going with the story originally and they just like threw that alien stuff at the beginning to be like,
which
boom.
I think your theory might be right because like in this movie originally, Stitch and Jumba, like it wasn't going to be like he created Stitch and it was an experiment. They were going to be gang members and Stitch was like one of the leaders in the gang and maybe they just crash landed in Hawaii and like they added all of that in, you know, then they changed the plot and maybe they just added in that scene beforehand and they were like, well, here you go. Because that's kind of what it felt like.
Speaking of gangs, what did the social worker
Yes.
have tattooed on his
Oh my god,
Cobra.
Cobra bubble.
You have Cobra tattooed on your knuckles.
I love this social
guys.
worker. That's so funny.
Why does the social worker have Cobra on his knuckles? Anywho, that was totally beyond the
he's
point.
right.
He's
Fine.
had a long life.
Yes.
He's been working with
perfect.
aliens
He's
for a
got
long
He's got a
time.
past.
So
Sometimes you got to punch Cobra into people's faces.
I guess so. Like we were saying, so once it's in Hawaii, then the animation gets a lot more beautiful. But the most beautiful parts of the animation are the background scenes. They
Which are
gorgeous. They're watercolor.
There you go.
So
Painted
this is why we're referencing
watercolors.
Dumbo. Dumbo was the last movie before Lilo and Stitch came out to have watercolor backgrounds. And then they decided to bring it in. They said, hey, you know, maybe we need to go back to the animation of our simpler times and it'll be more popular. Because their animation was just kind of doing so-so before this.
Also,
their movies.
they wanted it to be cheaper. Dumbo was one
Yes.
of the cheaper
Very
movies
cheaper.
of that time. And with the recent success of like Mulan and I think Tarzan and Hercules, those are all like really big budget. So they wanted to go a little bit lower budget for this one. And
How about it?
back
well,
to
and
Dumbo.
am I correct in saying that this was like in the 80 millions?
Yeah, 80,
And
80 million.
80
was the
million,
budget.
and the
That's
other
low.
ones were like hundreds of millions.
Right.
So
Yeah.
this for them was almost like a cheap win
Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
different way. But it's really interesting because when you're looking for the animation, you can really tell the difference between the background and the animation.
Oh, for sure.
Because the backgrounds are beautifully watercolored.
Right.
Like you could have this hanging on your wall. I think it's very
There's a
beautiful.
scene
but the
where-
animation is very flat.
Yes, there's a scene where he's like next to the frog on the side of the road, and they like pan in from the bottom of the road. And if you pause it right there, like the scene is there's like hills in the background, and the sky is beautiful, and even the mountains, like just everything. It looks really, really gorgeous. So it's so funny, like the juxtaposition between the animation, but overall, like the backgrounds, they steal it.
I think I read that they had to like train some of the animators on how to do like the watercoloring just because
it
it
hadn't
hadn't
been
been done in so long. And I wonder if that's why some of the actual like animation wasn't as up to snuff as we expected it to be.
Well, and I wonder if it's not so much that it's not up to snuff, but it's just so different that to mine eye,
To mine eyes.
to mine Winifred Sanders' eyes, it feels a little like it's like a little hitch in the get along.
You
because
notice
it's
it,
It's
yeah.
different,
Yeah.
because it's not. I mean, not that I want watercolor people, but it's
Yeah.
just it looks a little different.
Yeah, true. True. So can we talk about Stitch now? Does he
Yes,
deserve
Luis. What would you like to say? No. Okay.
it? Stitch is an alien.
Experiment 626.
Experiment 626. Okay, so on another note, Jumba is this weird looking alien with 4 eyeballs that created Stitch.
His
And
they could have
he
left him with
is-
2 eyeballs. I'm sorry. That third and fourth eyeball is too much.
Our eyeballs have significance here. I'm going to tell you.
Well,
why.
it better
So,
because they need to get rid of them.
Jumba has 4 eyes. When
Jumba.
Jumba
Juice.
Jumba Juice. Jumba Juice has 4 eyes. So Pleakley is
The
this
best character.
This alien that works for what is he? I
Mike
forget
Wazowski.
his official title, but he's like the protector of Earth and something mosquito population. Like I don't know, something crazy,
Yeah.
you know. So Jumba and Pleakley get sent to Earth to capture 626. Pleakley has 1 eyeball. So
Yes.
I'm gonna make sure you guys get this. Jumba has 4 eyes, and Pleakley has 1 eyeball.
So if
So
Jumba
nobody has
4,
2 eyes, okay?
Yeah.
So there is a running gag that the animators did, and I'm going to read it because this is so funny to me. It says, every time Pleakley looks at or attempts to show someone information about Earth, so he gives him, the device uses a Viewmaster. So he's always handing his Viewmaster to Jumba, like, look at this, like this mosquito population, or educate yourself, yes. Viewmasters create the illusion that the viewer is looking at a three-dimensional image that's actually created by each eye looking at slightly different pictures.
Right.
Its basic premise that the person that's looking into the Viewmaster has two eyes to create the effect, but Pleakley is a one-eyed creature and therefore would not see the 3D effects of the Viewmaster. Adding to the gag is when he hands the Viewmaster to Dr. Jumba, a four-eyed alien can also not see the effects of the Viewmaster. So I literally don't know how
useless for the both
it's
of them.
useless for both of them. So that's why they have those eyes.
Well, but still.
That's
Is
the
it
running
funny,
gag.
though, that, like, isn't the Viewmaster like a kid's toy? Like, I've never
Yeah,
seen
yeah, it
anyone
is.
use that except for, like, children.
He's
But
using
it's
it for
hilarious
straight
because
research.
now that I know that, I'm thinking of all the scenes where they're looking in the Viewmaster, and I'm like, you guys can't see anything. It's so funny.
That's actually very
So
funny.
they're his creepy four-eyed eyes. That's why.
Oh, Pleakley, though. I'm sorry. We need to talk about the scene at the luau where Stitch literally bites Pleakley's head. He has his entire head in his mouth. And Nani somehow helps them out and gets, like, Pleakley's head out.
Dumps water on Stitch.
And she's like, oh my gosh, your head looks swollen. And Jumba is like, oh no, she's just ugly.
No, she's just very ugly.
Jumba is hilarious. I think Louis said he was German, but he's definitely Russian.
Do you think?
Jumba.
Russian scientist.
Russian
Russian
scientist.
scientist. who
Yes, I
created
crush you.
626.
626.
Oh my.
They're so funny
That was
together.
funny.
They have. It's so funny because we were talking about Kronk and Yzma like last week, but like Pleakley and Jumba together is also very hilarious.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
love that
very
together.
much
They have a
so.
very
And
fun
especially because they're really not bad. And Jumba's really not that bad. I mean, yes, he created like a bad science experiment and everything.
Sure.
But like everyone does one bad thing in their life, right? I'm just
He's
gonna say,
experiment 626. You know how many experiments he made? That means he made 625 before that.
You know, everybody makes like 600 or so mistakes in their life, right?
ooh, I didn't think
No.
about it that way.
You would know this, but you didn't watch the spin-off show. So the spin-off show, like, Jumba accidentally released all of his creatures in Hawaii, and it's them trying to collect them all back.
Never mind, I
really
take
funny.
it back. He's awful.
Gotta catch
Yeah.
them all.
I think he was.
Gotta
pretty cool.
catch 'em all.
I thought he was hilarious. He was a cool scientist.
Pokemon.
I never necessarily
Pokemon.
got he was evil.
Well,
He's a dum-dum, but you know, I don't think he was
had
evil.
no problem like shooting a little girl with a multitude of weapons.
Well, to him, I don't mean to be like weird, like I know all about alien ethics, but like why would it be weird to him? Because he doesn't think she's a cute little girl.
Right.
He thinks she's an alien.
She's like a bug.
right? Like
Yeah.
he doesn't understand that, but like his allegiance is turned really fast, and at the end, he's about to help. Like he's all about helping
Right.
them.
Yeah, he
They
is.
move
Freaking,
in.
like,
They move
he
into the
literally
house.
is their relative. He's Santa
yeah.
Claus.
I will-
You know what I mean? He takes
Basically brings what's her name a little hoverboard or something.
Yeah. He's
What's her name?
He's very
See, you
nice
don't
at
even
the
know her
end.
name. That shows you how much
Lilo
she's
Erasure.
Lila.
little Lila.
I'm going to play devil's advocate here and tell you why Jumba is evil.
Hit it.
Jumba is evil because he literally... Let's think about Frankenstein.
Has 4 eyes. That's a
No.
problem.
Let's think about Frankenstein. This scientist created Frankenstein, and Frankenstein was lonely, and he was lonely, and you know the whole story. Whatever. He created Stitch, and he made Stitch, like, literally his only instinct and purpose in life is to destroy everything, like, destroy cities. And he has, can you imagine, like, if you just woke up one day, you have no family, and your only purpose in life is to destroy a city? So that whole scene where they're like, where he's watching Stitch from afar, you know, he's like, well, his purpose is gone. Like,
He has no purpose.
I created him to be this. And he's like, the look on Stitch's face is so sad because, and the whole thing with the ugly
Well,
duckling.
do you realize that it's sad for Jamba Juice too?
I know.
Poor
he
Jamba
actually
Juice.
he makes the same face that Stitch does because I think that's the turning point for him is that he realizes like, whoa,
What I
like the
just
gratitude,
said- yeah.
gratitude. Oh my gosh, the magnitude of what and the gravity of the situation that he has put.
that he just subjected
Yes,
poor
exactly.
Stitch to.
Exactly.
And that's really sad to me. And it's funny because you guys were like, poor Lilo, and doing all this stuff. And I was like, yeah, poor Stitch, man. Like, I really feel for Stitch, and it's probably because I have a dog. I'm like, oh my God, Stitch. Like,
Stitch is a dog.
But the scene with the ugly duckling and Stitch crying in the forest saying, lost, breaks my heart every time, and I want to cry.
I'm lost.
Oh, you just made me cry.
Oh my gosh, that's too funny.
It is so sad because and as much as Lilo is discovering herself, Stitch is too, and I think that's why she literally.
That's why
loves
they become
him so
best
much.
friends.
That's why they're best friends. They're literally going through very similar
They're
situations.
both very lonely.
Well, I mean, I think about the friends who I'm most close with in my life, and the ones who I've gone through common circumstances or similar life problems or whatever are the ones who are the closest because we have shared experiences.
He's her angel.
Yeah, I mean that's
So
why I like
cute.
Luis. I mean, I had a baby with him, so I mean we're stuck forever. So I mean,
Oh,
right?
Well, yeah, that's true.
I mean, common experiences it brings
Yeah,
closer.
definitely.
Yep.
But here, let's talk about common experience. Maybe not common experience, but are you ready for this one, Lou? We're about to get the tears on. Oh, that's not. I wasn't going to do the battle.
Oh,
Well, it's battle time too because he's ready for the battle.
It's
I thought we were battling.
Ba-da-dum-bum-bum-bum.
What is the shared experience?
Battle.
No, we're battling.
Can you sing this battle song?
Addie's dancing. She likes it. Battle. Addie's
Time.
dancing.
All right, ladies and gents. So instead of having an all-out battle between one entity and another, let's change it up a bit and have a battle in terms of shared situations or similar situations.
Okay.
So for this week, what do you guys think? Whose situation is harder to live with? Losing your parents at a young age with little to no resources, like Lilo and her sister, or losing your parents, becoming queen at a young age, and not being able to touch your younger sister for fear of freezing her?
You came up with a frozen battle.
Oh my God, Luis!
Elsa.
What? Did Luis just make a frozen battle?
Y'all don't even know how much Disney growth this takes for my husband to be having a Frozen related battle.
Okay, this is a good battle.
Truthfully, I'll admit it. I had no other battle, so
This
I
is
had
a
to.
good battle. So what is worse?
But this is actually good because I
Ooh.
think before we start deconstructing this, I think this is great because everyone focuses on everything else but the sad fact that Elsa was pretty much manipulated into thinking she was a monster.
Right.
Yeah.
Like that is an awful central theme of this movie that nobody everyone's just like, oh yeah, singing, yay.
Elsa has a hard freaking life.
She has a rough city life.
Okay, so
go ahead.
let's deconstruct it. I'm gonna start with Frozen on this one.
Okay.
So Anna and Elsa's parents died. It's very similar to the way Lilo and Stitch's parents died. They both died because of a rainstorm. Just one was in a car and one was on a boat.
That dang weather.
So the weather,
which we'll talk about in a second.
the weather killed their parents. So their parents are deceased. But Elsa literally has to hide her powers and cannot touch her sister nor go near her sister and has to grow up that way.
Or at least believes so.
Yes, and believes that she's a monster and won't go near her sister.
Exactly.
You know what gets
or
me,
anyone
guys?
else.
She doesn't leave that room, it seems like.
Yeah, but
They have
also,
no company, no physical contact with the outside world.
once it happens with Elsa, she can't hug the little one.
That's what we're saying.
Yeah, she has no physical contact.
she doesn't have any
Like,
more
She's
physical
in
contact
solitary
life.
confinement for a
she's
number of years.
basically put herself in solitary confinement because of her own fear.
She's in the hole.
In the hole.
So is that
If you've
worse?
ever been to prison, you know what that is.
Is that worse than Lilo and Stitch? Than Lilo's situation?
Lilo is very young. Her parents die.
Her parents die a lot. I don't know. They might.
How long
around
ago
the
do you
same
think
age.
it was? Because Luis and I were talking about this.
That's a good question.
I think
think it's
maybe a
with-
few months.
I was going to say within the year.
I was thinking
Yeah.
maybe like 2 years. or
No,
something.
because of the
then she would've
social
been
worker.
like 4.
Yeah,
I'm sure that the social worker's like now starting on the case. You know what I mean?
that's true.
I think
just
it's
showing
been
us.
long enough so that the shock is gone. You know what I mean? Because they're not distraught enough to be like,
it just happened?
I think a year.
Yeah, I think it's been like about a year but it has to be recent enough because, like you said, the social workers very much.
Well, they've
involved.
gone through a few social workers who didn't want to
And
help
though
them.
in the beginning of the movie, she says something about like kids look at me differently, and Nani says, "Well, they don't know what to say," and
Right.
so that means it's still fresh enough
Yeah.
that it's still like on people's mind.
That's a great point.
When they look at her and think about
So
it.
is it worse to be like, oh gosh, Lilo's situation is bad too?
So it changes Lilo completely, I assume.
Yeah.
I assume she was a little odd before that happened, but then it happens and she becomes the Lilo that we see. So it hits her really hard. She has a hard time making and keeping friends and interacting with people and feeding that fish that's in the ocean. But I don't know. Yeah, they're both real bad. I don't.
They're both bad.
I'm gonna say, well, that's really hard.
I know my answer, but I want us to keep discussing.
Well, it's interesting because the only thing that brings Elsa out of her tower or out of her room is the fact that she's being coronated.
Right.
And so they had to wait all of those years for her to be old enough to be coronated.
Literally years.
Right.
Like lots
Right.
of years.
So she was in isolation that whole time. I would say that, to me, my vote is going to be Elsa, that's worse because Lilo still has a sister. Even though it might be hard, she still has some outside contact.
Right.
But it seems to me like Elsa has completely shut herself away from everyone. So that, to me, at least in Emily's terms of life, that would be harder than living a life with
Nobody.
weird, maybe racist friends.
I'm gonna agree with you. My vote is that, and it would almost be harder to be. Think about Anna. Like, I mean, Anna doesn't. It's bad for Anna too. Anna thinks her sister literally hates her
Right.
and is just running around the castle by herself with like.
But that's what everyone focuses on. What about
Yeah.
Elsa?
No,
What about Elsa's feelings?
Yeah. But Elsa, I'm gonna go with it would be harder to be Elsa because she literally thinks she's a monster. She demotes herself to solitary confinement. She has no social contact whatsoever outside of like her room. I don't even think she lets the workers hardly ever into her room. Like
Right.
she just
They probably bring her food like she's an inmate.
that's about it. Like they just don't. And I think to me, yes, Lilo is really down on herself and is like, "Oh, just leave me here to die," in her joking, sarcastic way. But at least, even if her and her sister fight, that's more social interaction than nothing.
And
If
she
they
can
fight,
even-
they still love each other. You
Yeah.
know what I
Yeah.
mean? And Elsa, doesn't think she's worth anything. She's like, no.
I think that if given more time for Lilo to have festered and maybe been separated
Exactly.
from Nani and stuff like that, then it would have been just as bad as Elsa. But
If she had been
Yeah.
taken, had she been taken by the social worker and Stitch thing hadn't happened,
Right.
it could have ended up very similarly. Because we've seen so many stories about
Lilo
people
could have
going-
been a Goobian.
exactly
Yeah.
going into group homes or going into other situations. Not that
Yeah.
that's bad, but we've seen it portrayed in very
Right.
In movies,
in
as
movies
such.
very bad ways. But that's just so hard because I think Lilo still has enough personality to keep that sense of humor.
She's got some
Because
spunk.
even though she's like you just said, even though she's super dramatic, leave me here to die.
Yeah.
She's being dramatic, which
so lonely, baby.
I feel like Elsa doesn't even have that left.
Right. Yeah.
She doesn't have any of
She's
that.
done with everything.
Which I will say, the things that we're talking about Elsa right now is like some of my favorite things about her because then when you actually hear the Let It Go song, then you're like, whoa.
Well,
She
then it
did
actually
Elsa.
Yeah,
has.
she has some frustrations to get out.
It has a friggin' punch to
Well,
your
then it
heart.
actually makes the song worthwhile
Powerful.
versus just playing it on the radio, and
Yeah.
that's a whole nother.
Thanks,
We'll save
Caitlin.
that for another day when we actually review Frozen. So we all voted for Frozen. Luis, are
Did
you
you
gonna
also-
are you gonna disagree or agree with
Did you
us?
also agree with that, Andre?
Yes.
Yeah, he did.
I choose
You know
Elsa.
what, guys? I am going to agree with you. Mine's more of a kind of poor Elsa was pretty much. I think she was more left isolated. And,
Yeah.
and the isolation aspect that you all talked about, I think that's a no-brainer for me.
Yeah.
She's not only in isolation, but she is also believing she is a monster. So I agree with every single one of your guys' points. But to me, where it kind of hits me the most is unlike the Lila and Nene's situation. I'm joking, guys. I know their name. Unlike the Lilo and Noni situation, Elsa cannot comfort her little sister. But here's my kicker. I don't necessarily believe it's because she's deathly afraid of her being, what's it called, frozen. I think it's because she does not feel she deserves that emotion back from the little sister.
Right.
Because she thinks of herself as such a monster.
Oh, yeah.
So
she feels
it's
totally
almost like
undeserving.
In a what do you call it?
Psychological way?
Yeah, definitely. So it's kind of
because she hurt her, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she doesn't feel like she's worthy enough to even touch her sister.
Right.
You know, that's kind of like what I'm getting at. But yeah, looks like a clean sweep.
See, this movie has, for all of its hilarity, and we haven't even touched on the funniest parts of this movie, which make it so great.
It's quite silly.
It's very silly, but there's so many social implications and so many psychological implications. And if you even know anything about childhood behavior or the way the mechanics of the brain work as you're developing, it makes this movie very deep and very impactful. Mm-hmm. I mean, can you imagine what it would do to a child's psyche if an alien actually landed on Earth?
I mean, I thought about it a lot when I was a child.
Shut up! Shut up! Or if you picked
Where's my ET?
Or if you picked up a dog from the pound and he was blue with 6 arms and crazy antennae,
dude,
I would adopt him.
I would not have. I like how it was I thought he was dead. The vet thought the dog was
so you
dead.
put a dead dog in with the other dog.
So the dead dog was in with all the other dogs.
All the dogs were so scared of Stitch.
How do you feel about that? Don't eat the microphone.
FYI, she's trying to eat the nubbins, everyone.
Nubbins.
She's trying to eat the nubbins.
So yeah.
So on to the hilarity. Let's get on to some of the best, funny parts of this movie.
Are we going to talk about Stitch and the Ball now?
Please talk about Stitch and the Ball.
Yes. Stitch and the Ball.
Go ahead.
Let me just begin with that first scene where the first time he goes into the ball isn't like Nani yelling at Lilo.
I think it's right as
Stitch.
they're coming into the house for the first
they're
time.
kind of
right?
arguing in a sense, aren't they?
Always.
I think she was like, look, it's your new home. Aren't you going to be so happy here? Be docile, be nice to everything. And
so she's still like a big crotchety.
Well, yeah, he bites into a pillow and then turns himself into a ball and rolls away.
I kind of saw that scene as look, Nani, leave me the heck alone. I don't want to hear your stuff. I'm going to roll into a ball and leave me alone.
Oh, yeah. No,
leave me alone.
That was hilarious. He rolled up and was like, deuces.
The way that he rolls
lost
up,
it, though. He was like, he's a ball.
the way he rolls up is the best.
Well, I didn't say it like that. You're making me sound like a
he
brainless
sticks his legs out
buffoon.
completely straight and then sticks them into his mouth, bites down, and then rolls up.
That is quite hilarious.
Yeah.
And every time he does it, I even think, I can imagine, if that was in real life, I could see him, putting up a certain finger and being like, bah!
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Peace.
Stitch definitely would.
That's hilarious.
He does that when doesn't he shake his butt when they're chasing the ship and
shake his butt. I thought you said shake
was
his
it
butt.
Gantu? He looks back and he's like, yeah, I captured Stitch, but he didn't. And Stitch is in the thing behind him shaking his butt.
Oh yeah, he puts his butt on the wind.
He
the
does
windshield.
that to Jamba Juice too.
Yes, he does. Well, and it's funny because you assume that he cusses out the Grand Council when he says, what does he say?
I don't remember what it was.
Kishma shmishma.
Yeah.
Exactly. When he says that, you got to assume he's saying something real disrespectful about your mama or something. You know what I mean?
About your mama. I love how antagonistic Stitch is to just about everybody throughout most of the movie, and even after he's super cool with Lilo and they're hanging out, he's still a huge jerk, especially to all of her little friends when they first meet them. They're like, ew, what is he? And then he punches her off the bike and then steals it. Grand Theft Trike.
Grand Theft Trike. And then rides to every corner of Kauai. Rides to one side, rides to another, and Lilo's just hanging on whoa, I got myself a dog.
So funny.
This is the best dog ever.
No, one of my favorite parts in this movie is when, I can't remember exactly what Lilo says, but she's trying to teach Stitch to be civilized or trying to teach him how to be
not a monster.
Not a monster, but pretty much she's teaching him to be Elvis, right?
Oh yeah.
The king.
And so at one point she like tells him like he knows about romance, so he gives she gives him a rose and like finds the lady for him to go up to, and it's like this little old lady on a couch, and she's like she looks like she could use some loving.
And then he takes her hand and then she's like, now give her a smooch.
Okay, so
that is some
Disgusting.
good that is some good writing right
Some good
there. Like,
comedy.
that's
So, hold on.
hilarious.
I'm looking at the picture of that exact situation, and once he has her hand, he has like this look on his face that's almost like kind of like how first
date?
your first first time you ever hold your significant other's hand in like elementary or something.
Right.
Where you're like you're not looking at her, you're not talking at her, you're just looking
It's
straight
awkward
ahead, like
and
kind of
cute.
awkward with a smile, not smile. I thought that
This
was
is all while Nani is going on job interviews.
Oh,
too.
yeah,
Oh
yeah.
yeah. Oh yeah. That's
Just
fantastic.
perfect timing, Lilo. Thanks.
And pretty much any time with Bubbles, what's his name? Cobra
Cobra
Bubbles.
Bubbles.
Pretty
Mhm.
much any time with the social worker, like anytime she's talking to him, it's funny because he's always like, "What? What are you saying?" Like when Lilo's like, "Aliens are attacking my house." Oh, good, my dog found the chainsaw.
And that's those situations where you're like, as an adult, you're like, oh my god.
This is so messed up on so many levels.
It's great.
Oh my gosh.
You know what's also great?
What?
La música.
La música.
La música.
For the whole movie?
Yeah.
No, okay.
Ba-da-da-dum-bum-bum-bum-ba-da-da. It's funny because
Oh, I thought you were gonna like do your own battle
Yeah, I
or
thought
something.
your battle was-
No, I was singing Hawaiian roller coaster ride. That song in particular, it's funny because I didn't feel super attached to that song growing up at all. Like from the movie, I think a lot of people liked that song, and like we were in choirs, and I think I had to sing it in choir once.
Everyone has to sing
yeah,
that in choir.
in choir at least
Place
once.
I'd rather be.
Then on surfboard out at sea.
There you go.
Yeah, something like that. You know. And if I had one wish for I turn to the sun, sets me on the horizon. I'll make me my Loki. Just make it a rap.
So anyway, what were you
Make
saying
it a
about the
rap.
song?
That's how you make
The
things a
point
rap.
is, I like this song a lot, but I will say I am way more attached to the version in the Mickey and the Magical Map.
The Disney
The
show at
remix.
Disneyland.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
It's really
But
just
it's a really-
extended. It's only
a
just
really,
like
really good song.
extended little versions
and
of
I think when the song came on, Emily was all, thank God we need something happy. But then
seriously, dude, it was like heartbreak after heartbreak after heartbreak. You
Sad
guys
fest.
want to go surf? All right, good.
But that's like one of the things I love about David. Like Nani cannot find a job. Stitch and Lilo just literally scared everybody away from the beach. Like their life is looking real bad. And
Bleak.
all David can do is be like, you know what? Like, let's go surfing. And I really like that about him.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
so sweet.
Speaking of David, talk about like dropping the mic in a movie. In the scene where the social worker tells them that I'm coming in the morning and taking her after that whole escapade of like almost drowning and everything, David walks away and he's like disappointed after hearing that, and he pretty much without even looking at Stitch is like, they actually had a chance. And then you came into the picture
And
and
it
just walked away.
Yeah.
Talk about a mic drop.
That's
It
one.
was definitely
It's
a mic drop.
one of those moments where you're like, oh,
Right.
really bad word.
And
It was like this is all your fault, but it wasn't even that mean.
And if David has to say that, then
David's totally the nicest
it's
person
a
in the
very
movie.
complex situation.
Oh yeah,
for sure. But
Let's
I
talk
love
about
David.
another complex situation. You ready?
Yeah.
What?
Okay. It doesn't seem complex until you break it down. So,
Oh,
remember that there is like this really funny thing at the beginning of the movie with a certain fish and a
Ahuma
certain
huma
sandwich.
nuku nuku apua'a.
Pudge.
Pudge.
That's the name of the official fish of Hawaii.
Yes.
Good job.
Pudge.
That is what Pudge is.
So, Pudge, Lilo goes and feeds him peanut butter sandwiches on what day? Thursday. And
Thursday,
on Thursday. And
which is important.
yes, on one day she doesn't have any peanut butter, only has tuna in the house, so she's late to dance practice, right?
Yes.
You know what tuna is? Fish.
It's a fish.
I love
And she
that
can't
part.
feed it to Pudge because she would be an
Abomination.
right?
It's an abomination.
Which is hilarious for a 6-year-old to know what an abomination is. Anywho, long story short, the dude, the dance teacher, asks her, like, why is this so important to you? And she says, Pudge controls the weather. And so everyone's kind of like, okay,
like weird
Lilo's
kid.
weird.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's fine. Lilo's weird. Okay, so Lilo's totally a weird kid. But here's the kicker. Why would the weather be important to Lilo?
Because the weather killed her parents.
Her
Boom.
parents died in a rainstorm car crash.
So
Boom.
she keeps Pudge happy. She keeps the weather good, and nobody
and
else.
she doesn't lose anybody else
Has
because
to
she
be
remembers
lost.
everybody who leaves her.
Boom. Complicated situation.
Isn't that like intense? And Thursday too. Thursday's like a weather thing in
Because
Greek or whatever.
Thor is the
Lightning
god
bolts.
of lightning.
Boom.
Crazy.
I like this a lot. This is good.
It's interesting though too, because if you didn't, that's definitely something you have to watch for multiple times in the movie, because that happens very early,
Right.
And you don't
quick.
find out about her
It's
parents
before-
until
yeah, you know
way
about her
later on
parents.
in the movie.
But that's
Did
what
not think about that.
and I'm going to make this comment too. That is what is so great about Disney movies is you can rewatch them over and over and over, and there is something new almost every time I watch a movie that I didn't notice the time before that I'm like, oh my god.
Right.
Well, and
Very
that's
watchability.
that's masterful storytelling, because that means it's really showing layers to what's going on
Right.
and allows you to really reconnect with characters. And like we said, like if you're watching this as a kid, you're not going to get all of those nuances. But as an adult, you're like, well, what the psychology of a child? Why would a 6-year-old she's not just weird. There's a reason she's saying that.
They really thought about everything that they put into Lilo's character. Like all of her weird oddities all have reasons behind them. Which
But
is
Disney
amazing.
really does that the most and the best out of everyone. Well, I'm just going to go, I'll compare it to this. There's this movie, some DreamWorks movie that came out about gnomes, Sherlock gnomes. Like
Romeo and Juliet.
Romeo and Juliet. Those movies to me are just for children. Like I don't really see them as an adult, and I'm like cool. Like there's
Disclaimer, we have
no
not seen Romeo and
heart
Juliet or
punching,
Sherlock
you know,
Holmes.
themes and things that like
There
adults.
probably is, though.
There might be, but that adults watch with their children, and they're like the movie's also for the adult. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But in a masterful way, as you said, that Disney does. I just love that.
Yeah.
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 I mean, I won't say anything against it because I haven't seen
I can't
it.
poo-poo all over.
I'm not
Romeo and
poo-pooing
Juliet.
on them. I'm just saying Disney does it great.
Because, DreamWorks does some good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do.
So,
How to Train Your Dragon.
I get what
Secret
you're
Life
saying.
of Pets.
see, that was not my
Sing.
favorite.
Shrek.
Sing!
You liked Sing.
I loved
Yeah,
Sing.
Sing was good.
Well, I mean, I care about singing.
Care about singing.
It's important. And now every time I hear that song, lights, 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 it's when the koala's walking on the floor. Lights.
Oh my God.
I don't know. I heard that song the other day and I thought of that.
That's really funny.
Anywho.
Keeps you coming back.
So I thought that was really interesting. That's
Yeah.
just another little layer onto
That's amazing.
an already
I-
layered
I
movie.
I
actually
wish
love
that she
that a
had.
lot.
I wish that she had thought that the big fat dude that keeps losing his ice cream was the one that controlled the weather. She could help him out a
my
little
God.
bit.
Dude, I kept saying that he was Poe from Mulan because he's drawn the exact
Yeah,
same
he is.
way.
But if they did Mulan before
Right
this,
before
it could
this.
have been like
Yeah.
a
I'm telling you, that was
subtle
freaking
character
Poe, who
animation.
always
on
wanted to eat
vacation.
Beef, pork, chicken.
Ice
cream.
Wow.
so
So here's another thing that I think might need layers, but then I kind of gave myself like
Ogres have layers.
Okay, and onions. Speaking of ogres, just kidding. Lilo has lots of quirks, right?
Mhm.
But one of her unexplained, and this to me is very unexplained quirks, is her picture taking of random tourists.
And she
Yes.
finds such a fascination with it.
Yes. Most of the pictures, and I brought up a picture of her wall. Most of the pictures are of people who are in very,
Weird positions.
like they're lounging on the beach, eating a hamburger,
Yeah.
bending over.
Yeah.
Wearing a floaty,
Lilo's
laying
been
down, tanning.
Fat shaming all the tourists for quite some
But
time.
this is where I go back to those like children with autism tendencies where they just get like fixated on like this is cool and this is my hobby. Or I'm like, okay, Lilo.
Well, see, I
It's
took
odd
this
to me.
because she says in this, she goes, "Aren't they beautiful?" Right? And I think when I look at these pictures, I think it's all people where they feel they're most comfortable. Like one person's laying down on the beach, the other one's playing with the ball, the other one's eating like this very delicious looking hamburger.
Right.
And I'm thinking to myself, she probably doesn't feel that kind of peace anymore. So maybe she's capturing moments
Maybe.
of like people feeling really happy
Yeah.
in a peaceful, relaxing atmosphere that she just might
Right.
not get that anymore.
I'll
I'm good.
just get to
I'm good
relax
with
on the
it.
beach.
It's odd, Lilo, but like you,
because
do,
I
you
can't
do your thing.
Honestly, I can't figure out any other reason for her to be thinking that.
For her to be capturing these images.
Nani's
of
face is
these
priceless when
large
she's like,
people.
"My camera's full again." She's like,
She's like, these
yeah.
people are gonna think I have a stalker sister.
Oh,
Do you
Develop
imagine
the
going to
film.
Walgreens and like getting your Fujifilm developed, and they look at the pictures and they're like,
Little
"What?"
Kodak moments.
Kodak moments. I used to do that. Yeah.
They're like, what is this of? Well, this was the person who soiled their shorts at the beach. Like,
I don't know.
Dropped his ice cream for the 4th time.
His mint ice cream of all
Dude,
ice
mint
cream.
chip. Stop
chocolate chip
dropping
ice
it.
cream.
That is
Ooh,
invaluable.
Can we get some mint ice cream?
That's my favorite mint chip, man.
Let's do it.
We never got the mint chip from Clarabelle's. We were gonna get some mint chip.
I really wanted it,
and we were
and I
gonna get
never
some
got
mint chip on Main Street, and we did not.
Hashtag always snacking.
Yum yum.
Hashtag always snacking. Always snacking.
Maybe after the podcast we could go get some.
Did you know when you said
Yes.
hashtag
Mint
always snacking, it was like the Go Power Rangers?
Yeah, I did that.
Oh, I
Did
didn't know
you do
you-
that or did I do
First off, I sang that, Andre.
Never mind.
What do you mean, yes, you did it on
Because I
purpose?
sang it too. I couldn't
You
remember
did
how
it
I
first,
sang
I
it.
think.
But I don't think
I
I,
don't
sang
know.
it like
Well,
Power Rangers.
I didn't watch Power Rangers, so
Neither did I.
I thought I made it up.
So that's because he did it first and you copied him.
Aha!
Oh my god.
All right.
What did this
What?
What did this movie make / get on Rotten Tomatoes?
This movie made a lot of money. It got
I bet.
it got a good return. As we said before, the budget was $80 million, and it made a cumulative worldwide gross of $273 million.
Oh my gosh,
So it
they
made
profited.
its money,
And it's still
back.
making money, man, off all that Stitch merch.
Well, yeah,
Off of the
I'm
last
telling you guys, go to shop,
non-Lilo merch
go to Shop Disney, type in Lilo and Stitch, and laugh at all the Stitch merch.
because it's
You know, actually, I need to do something before we move on.
What?
I need to apologize.
Go ahead.
I need to say that I'm sorry.
What?
for what? What did you do?
I'm sorry I bit you and pulled your hair and punched you in the face.
You did none of those things.
Apology not
You
accepted.
better be sorry you didn't make me coffee and feed me. That's what you'd be sorry for.
First off, that was a Lilo and Stitch
Michelle's
reference.
actually mad.
I know it was a Lilo and Stitch reference. That was really funny. Shut up.
we totally bypassed the fact that she beat the crap out of
She-
Myrtle or
she
Merle.
messed
I
it
didn't
up.
bypass
Merle.
it. I mentioned it, but that's just Lilo doing
Hey,
her
you don't get to just
thing.
call Lilo crazy and not catch hands. You know what I'm saying?
Catch this can.
She went off as soon as she said, "You're crazy." Ah! Attack.
She's like, I'll show you crazy.
And she went right at her too like a cat. I was
Yeah.
like, I'm sorry, it was
It's
so
amazing.
funny.
Lilo would win in a hair pulling fight for sure.
And a biting fight and
Fighting
a punchy
fight,
fight.
punch
And at
fight.
the end, she's like,
That's
she bit me.
And they're all, ew.
You better not have rabies.
Funny. So funny.
Okay, so yeah, this movie has an 86% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Boom.
Okay.
Very good. Yeah, it was received quite well at the time.
And still gaining popularity, I believe.
Stitchy Stitch.
Yeah, yeah.
I will
once again,
say
they had
that,
all the sequels and the series and all the good
The
stuff.
one Stitch merch I do want, and I'm afraid to start buying them because I think once I start buying them, I won't be able to stop, is when you go to the Disney parks and you see the little Tsum Tsums. Is
Yep.
that how you say it? Tsum Tsum?
I know what you're talking about.
Zoom, zoom.
Well, they have little Tsum Tsums, and most of the time, Andre and I do this game where we go to the store in Toontown and we look at the wall of Tsum Tsums and try to figure out what they are, because a lot of the time,
Sometimes it's
They're
hard.
very
we literally
obscure.
cannot figure out what the Tsum Tsums are, and it doesn't say on the tag what it is.
I don't know
Thanks,
why they don't
Tsum
just put a
Tsums.
name on the tag. Come on, please, Zoom Zoom.
Yeah, so that's kind of a little fun game Andre
They're
and I play.
making you assume.
How dare you make me a Zoom Zoom? You know what happens when you make
You
when
make me
you're
a
making
Tsum Tsum, what your Tsum Tsum is.
Make a
So-
Zoom out of me and a Zoom out of you.
But there's 3 Tsum Tsums that are the cutest. It's Stitch, Pascal, and Simba. Those are the 3 cutest Tsum Tsums.
No, the 3 that I have are the cutest.
What do you
Oh.
have?
I have Rapunzel
Oh, I
that
got
you
you
bought
that,
me.
yeah.
Nemo, because he's already
Nemo.
like a Tsum size, and Coco, not it's Coco,
Miguel?
excuse me, Miguel,
Oh.
in his skeleton regalia.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah. So there you go. The
So,
cutest
like I
ones
said, I'm
have.
afraid to start buying them.
Oh, no, you really shouldn't. You really shouldn't.
There's a lot of them.
Soom.
Make my heart go
boom,
boom, boom. My supernova girl.
Let's give it some ratings.
That was Disney.
It was. Might be a reference to what's coming in the next future month, as in the future.
Girl, you gonna find that on DVD or something?
Yeah.
How we gonna watch
I
that?
don't know.
YouTube.
We'll figure it
YouTube.
out. Ratings. What do you rate this movie?
I'm gonna give it a 9.
9.
Solid movie.
9.
has good music, great storyline. I knock it some points for animation purposes, and that's about it. I love it. 9.
I'm gonna give it.
9.
I'm gonna give it an 8.
What?
8 is not bad, Michelle. Don't
I know
let
it's
it.
not bad.
It is very high. Like we rate all these movies pretty high.
We are giving like
We do.
I
ridiculously
think we
good.
give
I'm ready for the day where I
Below
give
6.
Kronk's New Groove a 1.
Crocson's Groove is like a 4.
Eh.
This movie gets an 8. It's hilarious.
There was an
It's-
old person doing a skateboard tricks. That's at least a 4.
there was a Lord of the Rings reference. That's the
Yeah,
only good
that's
thing
true.
about
There
it.
was a freaking
There's straight up
Smeagol
impression of
reference.
Some
Kronk's New
eagles.
Groove.
Schmeagling.
This movie gets an 8. It's hilarious. It has the very deep moments that we were talking about. It's not higher just because the animation is not great, and towards the end they throw in some of that like newer 3D animation that I don't love quite as much, with like the ships flying around and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's like they hodgepodged some of this.
Some hodgepodging was going around, and then
Which, do you want to talk about that real quick? Because that was one thing we just learned before we started watching this, or excuse me, before we started recording.
Right,
about the animation.
they changed a lot of things around the end of the movie, because this movie came out right after 9/11, and in the original script they had Lilo and Jumba and Stitch stealing a plane from
They
the,
were
from,
hijacking an airplane.
from the airport and flying it through Honolulu, in
Crashing a
between
bunch of
buildings, crashing
buildings.
into buildings and stuff like that. And then 9/11 happened, and they were like, "Ooh, we need to change all of this." So they turned the airplane into a big old spaceship, and they turned all the buildings into mountains, and they had the plane fly through the mountains and hit that dude's ice cream off by the beach instead.
But
of
it's funny
in the
because if
city.
you watch that video that we were watching with the original animation versus the animation that ended up, you can tell that because they had already animated the whole ending. They had to scrap it, but they used a lot of like the
It's like repurposed.
they
it
repurposed
almost,
it
yeah.
so that like if you look at the spaceship, it looks just like an airplane, and the mountains that they fly through look very much like the skyscrapers, just
Rounded off.
rounded out,
mountained,
Yeah.
mountained out.
mountained out.
Mountained out. I like movies that involve water. I think that's a.
You
a
think?
thing.
What you
You
with water?
what?
What?
Weird.
What?
What?
What do you give this movie, Emily? Luis looks like he was ready, but he wasn't.
Lemily.
Lemley.
Lemily gives this an 8.
8.
8.
Okie day.
What in the
This
world?
movie has water.
Every movie pretty much ends up on Earth, and Earth has water, so we should
Not
just
the
give
same
everything a 10.
as ocean water.
A lot of movies have water.
Ocean, water.
Michelle, didn't you give Atlantis the lowest rating?
Water.
Boom.
I think
Bunch
I gave
of
it a
water.
7.
Out of us?
So you're crying.
Wow.
They were.
They're underwater.
It has water.
They're under water.
Whatever.
Luis,
Nobody asked you, old man negative.
Old man negative. No, I enjoyed this movie a lot. There was a lot going on. There were some things that I wish that would have been explained a little bit more, but it's more because of my adult side wants to understand Lilo and Nani a little bit more than they gave us. But I still really enjoyed this movie. The animation is what kind of throws me off because, like Andre said, that they add the 3D in at the end. There's the watercolor and then kind of like the funky flat animation on the top.
Sure.
I kind of wish that they would have stuck with one all the way through, and then I would have been cool with it.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what it was, because the watercolor was so pretty that it was off-thrown by all the other stuff that was going on. So I would give it an 8. But it was freaking good, and
Freaking
now I appreciate Stitch a lot more because
Yeah.
at first I thought he was annoying. Like before I watched the movies, I thought he was weird and just a little tantrum child.
But now I understand why Ohanaman's family. Louis, what's your scores?
Let me begin by piggybacking off of you, Ems. I had no idea why people love Stitch. I look at him and I was like, he's just a little annoying blue monster who likes to wreck things. But after watching
Who
it
has 6 legs apparently? I thought he had 4.
But after watching it a second time, I love Stitch. He is awesome. But you guys might call me a simpleton, but I think the animation was good for where it was at. I mean, I have no qualms with the animation. With that said, I do want to say that I will give it a 8.5.
8.5. Good scores all around. Lilo and Stitch. Good stuff, right?
It's great stuff. So, next week, we have our listener voting movie.
Right.
Oh, no, we don't.
Oh.
Just kidding. I read that wrong. There's 5 Mondays this month. Sorry, guys.
We forgot to
But
count.
you should be excited for the next movie because I think a lot of our listeners are very interested in it, and I'm interested in it because I've never seen this movie. We are watching Bedknobs and Broomsticks.
Knobs and Broomsticks, the classic hybrid live-action and animated movie.
Yes.
I don't even know what year it came out. I don't have that.
It came out in a year.
It came out in a year.
So we've been getting kind of a lot of requests for this movie, and Emily and Luis got it on DVD for us, so we're super excited to watch it. Bedknobs and Broomsticks coming at you next week.
Knobs and Broomsticks from the 70s. Okay, you guys, that is it for this week. We want you to go to Patreon.com/The Walt Vault. That is where you will find the after show, A Crack in the Vault. That's the show where we talk about some of the more adult themes in these Disney movies. Go there and contribute for only $1 a month, and you'll be able to help us out. You can also help us out by going to thewaltvaultpod.com and clicking the shop on Amazon page. If you go there and click on the Amazon link and shop there as normally, it will help us out with a small percentage of your purchase at no additional cost to you, so that's great. You can also help us out by just visiting us on social media. We are at the Walt Vault Pod on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Drop us a line there. We love talking to you. You can also send us an email to contact@thewaltvaultpod.com. You send us an email there. I will read your message on the show because as far I have received 0 emails from any of you. And I know you all have email on your phones. I know you can do it. It's possible. Drop us a line. Ask us some questions. Ask us what our favorite things are. Ask us anything. AMA. We want you to subscribe. You can subscribe on Stitcher, Google Play, YouTube, and, of course, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, which is where we would also like you to leave us a review. That helps us out a lot. Leave us a review, a 5-star rating, and that helps bring the show to other people. You guys, that is it for now. We will see you next week. The vault is now closed.